Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Creating Synergy podcast. I'm thrilled to introduce our guest today, the CEO of SA Power Networks, Mr. Andrew Bills. In this episode, we're going to embark on an insightful journey, delving into Andrew's life and his remarkable career experiences. From his early years shaped by his personal challenges, such as the untimely loss of his father at 12 years old, to navigating crises such as a cyber attack during his tenure as CEO at CS Energy. Andrew will share pivotal moments that moulded him into the extraordinary leader that he is today. The conversation with Andrew will leave you inspired as we uncover the secrets to his resilience and unwavering positive mindset in the face of adversity. Throughout the conversation, we'll gain valuable insights on leadership and transformation, discovering the qualities that have made a profound impact throughout his career. In this episode, we'll also delve into the multifaceted role of a CEO and gain invaluable insights on achieving a work-life balance, and we draw on Andrew's personal triumph over prostate cancer. As we peer into the future, Andrew will enlighten us on his vision for SA Power Networks, offering us a glimpse into the exciting prospects that lie ahead. And moreover, his leadership development advice will undoubtedly resonate with leaders and aspiring leaders alike across so many diverse industries. So without further ado, let's dive into our chat with Andrew Bills. So welcome back to the Creating Synergy podcast. Today we have the new kid on the block here, I guess, in South Australia, Mr. Andrew Bills, all the way from Brisbane, now the new CEO of South Australian Power Networks. Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Very excited to have you along. First question I have to ask: how are you enjoying the cold weather?
Oh God, it's causing a bit of grief, I got to tell you. That's the hard part. Everything else I'm loving about Adelaide, how friendly people have been and welcoming, and just telling me things I need to do, people I need to meet. It's been wonderful, but God, it's been cold and wet. And every weekend's been wet,
and it feels like it's been the coldest bloody winter.
And so, for someone who loves exercise, getting on the bike, it's been hard. So a bit of a challenge.
That cold wind in your face every morning.
Yeah. And just the wet, it's just, I don't like, it's not safe when it's wet. Other people just love it and they'll ride regardless. But I find it in a new city, in the dark, in the wet, something I'm not going to do. So
it is the cycling
capital of
Australia, though. It's the coast where the coast meets the vineyards, right?
It's beautiful. You got the hills, you got the coast. So I am investing in a trainer this weekend so I can ride rain, hail, or snow. That'll keep my activity going. But I'm looking forward to the warmer weather, more daylight hours, and doing longer rides.
100%.
Yeah.
I had a accident on my bike. I remember my daughter was about 6 months old, and I came off the bike in the wet, and I it was going around a roundabout. The white lines on the road, they become slippery. Yeah,
lost your wheel.
Wheels just came out. I slid across this roundabout and just missed this car as it was sort of driving by, and I went, I gave that up then, and I took up running, which is probably a bit worse on the body, but anyway, it is what it is. The rest is history. I'm still alive to tell the tale. Now, let's get into the story of Andrew. I'd love to explore your journey throughout the years. So what do we have to understand about you and your earliest context to understand the person that's sitting here in front of us today?
That's a good question. Look, I was born in New Zealand. That's probably the context to start with. I grew up in a small town called Timaru.
Lived in the
South Island, between Christchurch and Dunedin. Lived on sort of 5 or 6 acres in a sort of semi-rural environment. And look, when I look back, it was a pretty lovely lifestyle. Very simple, but we had this one. We could do anything we wanted, going outside, playing. It was safe, what have you. So that was sort of like, your classic sort of 70s sort of environment. Yep. But the context that's really relevant is my dad died when I was 12. So he was a lot older than Mum. There was a 17-year age difference. So it was quite a lot for those days.
Yeah. How old was he when
he was 56 and she was.
So he's still very young though.
Yeah. So he died of a heart attack. So Mum had to go back teaching.
So she wasn't working at the time?
No, she'd stopped teaching to have 3 kids and was raising 3 kids. And so she had to go back teaching and raise 3 kids. I was 12, my sister was 10, my older brother, he was sort of 15. So, so that was probably a very formative experience in terms, because we all had to, what came out of that was we all had to pitch in. So we all had to cook a meal, we all had to do cleaning, we had to do our share of housework, cleaning and around the gardening and everything. So it gave us a tremendous sense of independence. So when I then left home at 17, go to university, and I was in a hall of residence for a year, but then you go out in the share house. I was the only guy who knew how to cook, clean, iron, whatever. And all these other guys are sitting there going, I don't know what to do. Mum's been doing everything for me. So I just got this tremendous sense of independence courtesy of that. And you had to, it was a very formative sort of experience.
Yeah. Not ideal circumstances to learn that, though.
No. And, I think the impact of something like that at a young, 12, 13, formative age as a young man, young boy, as a teenager, and then losing that male role model. Yeah. I think it had a big impact on my life for some time. So that's probably the most formative thing in terms of context of who I am. Was he a good role model before? He was. He was a very kind person, very gentle. He played the cello, classical and double bass jazz, and played tennis and golf. And he was just a very pleasant. From what I remember, he was very kind to be around. I think, there was a lot of things I missed out on that we were going to do together, like hiking and stuff and what have you, and he loved doing that. But he apparently, photos show I do look like him, so I was very much in his own image. So I have a lot of fond memories.
Is the heart attack? Is there a case of that in the family, or was it something new? Or?
No. It was like his father had blood pressure, and his brother died of a heart attack as well. So
it's something you need to.
I've been obsessed as a result about my own health and heart disease and
the cycling and everything.
Exactly. And I've never smoked or anything like that. And it's because you look at it and you go, well, your DNA is going to give you certain odds, right? So what do you do to improve your odds? Stay fit, eat healthy, so forth. So it did shape my life choices, reacting to that. So unfortunately, I don't have high blood pressure or cholesterol, and I've been lucky. So yeah.
You're one of the few at the moment. It feels like everyone's got a blood pressure problem. Anyway, we'll go there a bit later. I know you have had your health struggles elsewhere, but we'll jump into that. So growing up, being sent to boarding school, is that where?
Yeah, actually, So at 10 years old, I went off to boarding school because in that rural environment I described, I went to a local school, rural school, and there's only 30 kids in the whole school, 4 in my grade. Mum and Dad weren't that happy with the teaching and obviously the curriculum. So my brother had already gone off to this boys' boarding school. It was 100 boys on 20 hectares in the middle of the countryside. Yeah. I think when I look back, incredibly privileged the experience. And it was a school called Waihi, and still going. And we played sport every day. We had to do homework every day except Saturday. Went to church every day. You learn Latin, you learn French. This is at 11, 12 years old. So it was sort of based on the English prep school, like Eton or something like that, but obviously a New Zealand context. And it was really hard at first. You leave your mum and dad at 10 years old. You're still a kid, and I got very homesick. But as you go through, I was there for 3 years. You look, by the time you're in that second, third year, you're just loving the fact that you've got all these buddies that you can go play whatever sport you want every day of the week in the middle of the countryside. You can go and grab a fishing rod and go down and catch a trout in the local river, and then the kitchen would cook it for you for dinner that night. I mean, I look back at that and go, my God, man, how lucky was I and privileged. And again, that shaped a lot of that independence I talked about as well, because you had to be. You're away from your parents.
The freedom.
Experience. Freedom. And I've still got several friends from that period I'm in contact with.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Build relationships that last for a lifetime in that. Do you think moving away the the passing of your father, the boarding school, the passing of your father, and all the above, does it provide a layer of resilience within you as you move through?
I think it did, absolutely. I think I always had it though. I mean, I think what's interesting, I think you might have a propensity to be a certain way or act in a certain way, and then the environment shapes the context for you about how that then you build on that. And I think I always had it, but then that experience of boarding school, and then what I described earlier, with just us all pitching in. By the time I was 18 years old, I left home 17, 18, not long after university. I was like, I can do whatever I like, I can go wherever I want. And after I finished school, after I finished university, I bought a one-way ticket out of New Zealand to America.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll just go wherever I want to go.
Yeah.
And I'll just make it work.
So backpacking across America?
Yeah. So I did a gap year effectively. Yeah. My uncle lived in San Francisco and I used that as a base. And then I just go and travel.
It's a tough base.
And I just traveled across all over the place. And one of the crazy things I did, and I'd say to my kids, don't ever do this. Don't do what I did.
Yeah, that's right.
I met up with a buddy of mine in Vancouver and we hitchhiked across Canada together.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was pretty wild experience. Some real highs and some real lows. And I look back and I go, my God, the trouble we could have got into.
Yeah.
Like the circumstances could have completely altered your life forever.
Yeah.
And we were lucky in that regard. But again, that was that resilience, that confidence, like, I'll find a way, no problem, just get out and be in the moment.
An 18-year-old kid.
Yeah. By this stage, I was 21.
You're 21. Still in the...
Still in that.
Still young, dumb.
Young, exactly. And it was a great experience. I mean, but that's kind of, to answer your question, it did very much shape that, which led to that decision.
Yeah.
And doing things, when I look back now with the maturity and the wisdom, you would never do that now.
No,
right? You'd never.
No, it's funny. We had my business SynergyIQ. We had our strategy day yesterday, just to sort of inform the whole team of the new 12-month strategy and all the above. And we had a couple of people in. We were just talking about back in the day sort of conversations, and you have that part where you go, shit, if the world knew what we used to get up to back in the day, but you can't hold yourself accountable to what your 18-year-old self did, right? Like or 21-year-old self is you're making decisions with what you've got at that time.
That's right.
Hindsight is a wonderful thing. Hey, you've got children now?
Yeah, I've got two daughters growing up. One's 27, the other's 24. They're both really, launched and got great careers.
So you got two girls. They're probably much more wise than you anyway.
Yeah, I'd agree. I look at them now and just how mature and the decisions they've made and how complete they are, and they just seem so much compared to what I was at that age. So much more together.
Yeah, I'm a father of two daughters as well, so I've got an 11-year-old. I feel like she's more together than what I am.
And I'm like, and I think they've got an idea about some of the stuff I get up to, but not all of it, obviously.
So what happens next? You've travelled, you backpacked. At what point does rubber hit the road and you go, shit, I need to actually do something here?
When you run out of money.
Yeah, that's typical.
So I ran out of money at the end of that year, and you can only stay so long in America too. You can't work unless you've got a green card. And I wasn't going to go through that process. No. And my grandmother was born in Scotland. One of my grandmothers, and so I had patriality to work in the UK. So I just got a ticket out of New York into London and literally started work 3 days after arriving in London.
Yeah, wow.
And just doing temping and contract work and what have you. And I just used, like all the Aussies, Kiwis, South Africans, just go and do a couple of years in London.
So you had studied before that though? You studied back in New Zealand?
Yeah, I'd done my degree at University of Canterbury in Christchurch, which was a BA in politics and economics.
Okay.
So it's interesting. I actually started enrolled in law.
Okay.
And I got it back then. I got in. This is classic, right? Back then, I was paid to go to university.
Oh wow!
So not only was it free, I was at the end of this period where it was a free education and you were paid. So I was paid about, I think it was $2,400 a year.
Oh wow!
And
then you picked up.
I know. So I have this. I do have a sense of guilt, a tremendous sense of guilt.
No, thanks.
Because I was the state, or the New Zealand government has invested in my education.
Yeah.
And I've just then buggered off.
Yeah.
And I did do holiday jobs to help support me. So, and they were like working in a flour mill or a wool store, good manual labouring, fish factory. I did some tannery. Yeah. I did some interesting shift work. And between what I earn over the summer plus the 2,000, I'd live off that for the year. Anyway, so I did that. But I started law.
Meanwhile, Australia's reaped all the benefits.
I know. I just think about how much tax I pay in this country, and the wealth that I've created here. It's exactly. I am very conscious of that. I've talked to a few other Kiwis, because there's about 1 million Kiwis living around the world.
Yeah.
And it's very much our generation as well.
I mean, it's not too dissimilar. There'd be similar statistics from Australian point of view, but I don't think any of them paid for their university degree. No,
it was just right at that period in the 80s, and then the world changed.
Yeah. Well, lucky you.
Yeah. So, but I started doing law, and this is one of those things going back. If my father had been around, I probably would have stuck at law.
Yeah. Okay.
And
was he a lawyer?
No, he was an accountant, but he would have. I think that guidance, and he probably would have said, you need to have a profession, law, accounting, whatever.
Yep.
And I don't know, again, I wasn't in the right headspace, and I just, bugger this, I'm not doing this, I'm going to go and do what I like.
Yeah.
In retrospect, like given how much money I've spent with lawyers over the years and time I've spent with lawyers and how much I understand the law, I actually would have been, quite okay doing that as a career. I think I would have enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Because I naturally gravitate to it.
Yeah, okay.
And a lot of my friends are lawyers. I look back at it for those life decision points.
Yeah, yeah.
But then if I'd done law, I probably wouldn't have got the one-way ticket and gone around the world.
Yeah.
I would have stayed.
Or been CEO of some amazing companies, right?
So I would have stayed in New Zealand, probably gone into a law firm, and then who knows what would have happened. My life would have been changed forever. So that was one of those, I'm not regretting it. I'm just thinking back going. Do
you think naturally you would have seeked out leadership positions anyway? Like you would have moved
I think
your way
so.
up? Yeah.
I think, I was, I was at school, I was naturally, whether it's in the rugby team, everything's rugby in New Zealand.
I don't really know that sport very well. We're in South Australia. We don't do rugby.
It's footy. It's just a different style of footy. I was always sort of like in a group situation. I was very comfortable just sort of taking the lead, and so therefore I think there is some innate attributes that come with leadership, and I think when I look back, I was just comfortable expressing my opinion or suggesting something in a group environment. So that was always there. Whether it would have manifested itself if I was a lawyer, probably who knows what would have happened. So that was interesting. The New Zealand government spent a lot of money on me, and I went over around the world. But so I was working in London, and just doing contract work. Nothing fabulous. Just what paid the most per hour, how many hours could you work, and then when was your next trip around Europe? And that we're going to go 6 weeks here, we'll do 4 weeks here, whatever. And I did that for a couple of years.
Yeah, wow. So you got to see the world.
I got to see the world, and I loved it. And then you're going to say, well, how did you end up in Australia? So, as often the case, you go around the world, and then you meet someone who's right next door to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And my wife, at the time she wasn't my wife, obviously, but I met my future wife in London, and she was from
what's her name?
Jill, and she grew up in Gundawindi,
in the
regional Queensland, near the border there with New South Wales. And she'd had enough of the London weather, like most Queenslanders do, and said, look, I'm going to go back to Brisbane. And I said, can I come too? And that's why I ended up in Brisbane. It was just, and that was again back in that, I'll go wherever and do whatever and just landed in Brisbane in 1990.
Yeah, well, you had that attitude of just being kind of nomadic, didn't you? It was just
I
traveling.
felt at the time, it's interesting, I felt at the time the freedom I had and the way I thought about things, I could go anywhere in the world and survive. Like find a place to live, make some money, find some friends, and just do whatever I could. At that point in time, I had that real sense of freedom and confidence about just going with wherever I want to go.
It's a basic skill set, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It changes when you have kids.
Yeah, I know. And you don't want to let them go anywhere.
I know.
I can teach you everything. You're just not allowed to go anywhere.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is, actually?
I think it's a sense of responsibility because you've got, you're their parent and you don't want them to. And I think this is this weird thing about it happens with every parent and child relationship, right? Your experiences that you went through shaped who you are.
Yeah.
And that makes you the great person that you are. Now, some of those experiences can be really confronting, and most of us will have confronting experiences in our life. But that's what shaped who we are. When we look at our own children, sometimes we want to protect them from those experiences because we know the pain or the suffering or whatever it was that caused that, and so we protect them from that. But that's almost like at odds with who you are.
Correct. We're holding him back.
And you're like, but hang on. I survived that experience. Look who I've become as a result of that. But you then shelter your children from that. And I find it really interesting that this happens. Yeah. And all parents are like that.
Yeah. Having children is by far and away the best thing I've ever done in my life and the worst thing I've ever done in my life. Like this is the range of emotions and the ups and downs that just go with it and the constant, I don't know if you call it fear, but for lack of a better word, the anxiety almost of if anything, should they fall over and break their arm or let them go? I've always had the attitude similar to you, I think, which is like you give them enough rope to get a couple of scratches and get hurt. But yeah, I don't know. Cotton wool just doesn't work.
No. And I just think, would I want my daughters to hitchhike across Canada? No, not in a million years. I would stop them from that. Would I want them to do some of the other things I did when I was at university? No, not.
Yeah. So here's a question for you, from a father of two daughters as well. Yeah. If you had boys, would you let them?
No.
You still think you'd have the same attitude?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. I was just some of the stuff I did was irresponsible, and stupid, and I would not want anyone, male or female.
So you don't think you've got the ability to train them up to not do those irresponsible things?
You hope so. You hope so. But yeah, so I think it's pretty interesting that we as parents protect our offspring in a way which is
counterintuitive. Yeah.
Correct, and it defines who you are.
Yeah. There's a life lesson right there. So. Move to Brisbane. Where are we? What happens? Did you get married straight away?
No, I got engaged. Big mistake I made was we got engaged, young love, overseas, and I hadn't met her parents. Didn't even ask.
No.
That didn't go down well.
No, you've been hated for it.
No, look, I have a great relationship with my father-in-law. He's 92 now. But I took benefit of hindsight, would never have done that.
Yeah, who's this young buck?
Yeah, and he's a Kiwi as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and my father-in-law is he's a lovely man, very traditional, product of this generation. But and he played rugby, so Kiwis were like the arch enemy. So anyway, so I ended up in Brisbane. We're engaged, and this is just when the recession started in 1990.
Okay.
So the recession, this is the famous Keating, the recession we had to have.
Yeah.
We're talking about interest rates.
Everything was at 17% or something.
You talk about interest rates today, you go back then.
Yeah, I don't worry, my parents tell me about it all the time.
Man, oh man, trying to buy a house, and the thing was I had no employment history, I had no credit history. So it was interesting. It was quite a tough time to get established. But I got a job and then fortunately that job, the person helped fund me doing an MBA at UQ because I kind of knew I needed to do a little bit more than
skill up.
Yeah, exactly. So I did an MBA and for a few years part time UQ, and that then just after that had finished, I took a job at Coopers and Lybrand. So.
Okay. Which is the
now PwC.
PwC,
yeah.
Which they're not going through the greatest.
No, look, I think it's unfortunate, sort of what playing out there. I mean, I think I actually had dinner with some PwC people the other night, and I sort of, tried to get a sense of where things were at internally. And I sort of said, look, the thing about managing a situation like that was you needed to act more swiftly. You needed to lance the boil. In fact, you needed to do more than lance the boil. You needed to chop a limb off and to show that you actually understood what had occurred and demonstrate you were taking appropriate action. And I think the problem was that some of the decision makers involved in that at that point in time were involved in the
fearful
correct.
of their own.
Yeah, correct. So anyway, but
which the natural instinct to try to cover up, isn't it?
Exactly.
And go, I hope no one sees this, and then go, shit, I've made it.
But I think when I look at, okay, you got a group of people who made some really poor decisions, and they need to be held account for that totally. Does that mean the other 9,000 something people are guilty of the same behaviour?
No.
And should lose their jobs? Absolutely not.
No.
They've got really capable people. They offer great services, and I'm very conscious of that. And I think there's a bit of hysteria in the media about it.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, PwC, oh my God. Yeah. So let's actually have a balanced conversation about it and actually understand what is the issue, and does it affect everyone else? And it's no different from my organisation. If someone made a poor decision, or a breach of conflict of interest, a breach of probity or whatever, does that mean the rest of the organisation is judged by that? Yeah. Well, our response to it and how we deal with it, absolutely.
Yeah.
But does that mean every other employee acted the same way?
Do you think, though, because it was at leadership level,
Yeah.
I mean, the fish rots from the head, right?
Correct.
I think the problem is far greater than, well, the others shouldn't suffer. It's if you're actually... Like integrity, where does integrity come in?
And this is what it's all about: leadership and integrity
Correct.
and culture. And I totally get it. But I guess what I'm trying to say here is, when I look at the actions they've taken, okay, it took longer. They've taken appropriate actions.
Yeah.
And the controls they've put in place and the changes they've made, fantastic. And I just think when you look at the balance of the other people in the organisation who are actually really good, people and doing great things. I'm just trying to get a balance in that. Yeah,
no doubt.
Conversation. That's all.
Absolutely. Yeah. You can't paint the brush.
Yeah, correct.
Everyone with the same brush. I know. Look, I work in the consulting space, right? So, we've had a few people from PwC contact me just on the back of, I don't know that I can. Like, I am looking because I don't know that I can work in a place that leadership does that. I think that's going to be a big issue.
I think you're right. I mean, because people will vote with their feet, and
Correct.
Do they want to be a part of that going forward or not? And that's the choices they've got to make. But I think when you go through an experience like this, organisations who respond and make fundamental change. You will see a completely different environment, culture, and attitude come out of it. So I think when I look at it and go, the signs are there now that what you should see is happening. So I think I'd like to think that in 6 months that we're having a rational conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not the hysteria that we're seeing.
And we've got to understand your context here too, because you are you PwC 5 years, were you?
5 years.
5 years. So you've got some excellent memories and fond memories, and did some great work. It was your formative. So.
Well, I was Coopers, and I then went through the merger. So,
yeah, well, that's true.
Yeah, so in '99 with Price Waterhouse.
So were you there when it went through the merger?
Yeah. And I left just after that.
Just after.
Yeah. So look, I mean, my contemporaries were a lot of the people who, in leading the tax or audit or whatever. So I know a lot of those people. So, but it doesn't mean I've got like a clouded view. All I'm trying to say is I take a balanced perspective on it. Just because I work there doesn't mean I think
you have to.
Yeah,
you're taking in the whole context
as
opposed to one perspective.
That's exactly it.
No, it's very, very good. So then PwC, you decide, no, I'm not going to put up with this merger. I'm going to go off and.
Well, I think unlike you, I looked at. Was I a good consultant, and did I want to pursue a career in consulting? And I felt I was actually better working in a business rather than on a business. And so I was at that junction point. I was a director. did I want to be the partner? You know, you have those conversations
Yeah.
in my 30s, and you know, where did I want to go? And I just felt, you know, I'd worked on a couple of big jobs where I was very immersed in the business, and I felt I was actually better off owning the outcome.
Yeah.
And so that's when I was doing a lot of work in energy and infrastructure at the time. And that's the industry group that I was in.
Yeah.
And I jumped into an energy company in Brisbane, thinking, okay, if I work in energy, I won't need to travel as much as when I was at PwC, right? That was young
famous
family.
last words.
Famous last words. Young family, because my daughter was born in 96 and the other one 99.
Yeah.
So I left in 2001, and you know, and I was thinking, oh, great, won't have to travel as much. I jumped into an energy company, and man, did that assumption prove to be wrong? Oh,
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Energy's not just in the one spot.
No, and I think that's but yeah, when I was looking at it, was done on a rational basis in terms of Queensland is blessed with energy resources, you know, at the time, and therefore there's, you know, if you think about Queensland, you think tourism, agriculture, you know, energy, right? That very much in the 1990s, that's where it was.
Weather is what I think.
Yeah, and that's the tourism.
That's tourism.
Yeah. So that was the logic. And it was an organisation called Stanwell Corporation. It was a government-owned generator.
Yep.
And I was in there for 5 years, doing a range of different executive roles.
Yep.
And really enjoyed it. And then I left. When was that? 2007. Yeah. And jumped across to Babcock and Brown Power.
Now that's the old Alinta, is that
correct?
correct?
It's now called Alinta, yeah. So
because they went through a bit of
one of Australia's great corporate failures.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So you were in executive roles when all that went down.
Yeah, I was.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I, you know, like Babcock and Brown had this mega run in the 2000s. And you know, and they were sort of like a baby Macquarie, you know, modelling themselves on Macquarie, and you know they're just creating all these listed funds, you know, sort of throw a group of assets together, get the synergies of that listed, you know. So you had BB Power, you had BB Wind, you had BBI Infrastructure, you had property. It was just lots, and they were big, large. Yeah, and they'd done really well on cheap debt. Yeah, cheap debt in the 2000s, and then as we all know, what had started emerging in 2007. Yeah, and then GFC, and that kind of came unstuck, big time. And I saw the wheels fall off pretty badly. So
What role were you in?
So when I joined initially, I was responsible for managing all the joint venture investments. Yep. So they had lots of power stations where they would be a percentage owner or majority owner. So I managed all of those and had lots of different subsidiaries and different boards and what have you. And then I bought out. We took control of a group of those. So negotiating that. It was negotiating a divorce, by the way. Yeah. Because it was pretty ugly. Yeah, wow. So that was a good chunk of my time. And then literally I just landed the divorce, got control of these assets, and the share price collapsed. And that was in sort of May 2008. Okay. Yeah.
And what happens when the share price collapses? Take us back to those who were early in their business career and didn't really...
Well, you know,
there's probably a bit of post-traumatic stress there, to be up. So sorry for bringing this up, but it's interesting conversation.
It is. I mean, I was a baptism of fire. Don't get me wrong. I had literally been working around the clock on doing that transaction. There were multiple transactions, and then literally had about a 4-week breathing space, and then the share price just went into collapse. Yeah. And so what was happening was the financial stress on the company was at such immense levels. And so you're in crisis mode about how you're surviving because, you know, how are they going to meet their debt payments? You know, there was trying to get a feel for the true cash position of the company. And I was thrown quickly into a role of selling assets to help
to keep divest.
Yep. So literally, I sold a power station in 5 weeks to Origin, which was Uranquinty Power Station, and so I led that.
This is the famous buy up when you're when everything else goes down.
Well, it was also Origin at the time, and obviously I ended up working at Origin. Yeah. Origin was under that, if you remember, BG had launched a takeover.
Yeah, okay.
For them, and for them it was a defensive play as well.
Okay.
Before they ended up doing the ConocoPhillips deal
Yeah.
and APLNG and everything. So that was, and to do a transaction that quickly for a power station is just unheard. It's just crazy.
Yeah. So how quickly?
5 weeks.
5 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ran a
right.
process and offloaded
Did
it.
you have much sleep during that
No,
time?
I didn't. Just working around the clock. But I ended up doing, I was trying to work it out the other day. I think it was like 8 transactions in about 12 months.
Yeah, wow.
12 months. Now, most people might do 1 or 2.
Yeah.
This was just insane. And it was just about, okay, that was the first one. What's the next one? What's the next one? And it was just literally offloading assets or liabilities, finding the right partner, negotiating an outcome.
Did it work?
Yeah, it kept the place going. And then we did a refinance in the middle of all of that, which is unbelievable. I can't believe we got that through because we had all these the debt was sitting at the project level and we consolidated and put it at the corporate level.
Yeah.
And that was the refi. And a lot of people who were involved in that, look back at it and go, just can't believe that got pushed through.
Yeah.
Right in the heart of the GFC.
Was there layoffs and everything else that went?
Yeah, people were being let go. You had,
so it was just a mess.
It was just a mess.
Chaos.
And you had a lot of people. What was really sad, a lot of people. The way the salaries and people were structured was obviously there's a lot of equity made available to employees. So that's you had whatever you were paid, and then you had your options and what have you.
Yeah.
The value of those options just went to nothing. So, and if you were leveraged to the hilt,
then you're up the wazoo.
Up the wazoo. So I saw, people taking their kids out of private schools, just trying to sell their houses because they had no cash flow to fund this. So it was, if you want to, it was pretty sobering what you were witnessing. And every day, at the end of every day, you'd sit around this table with all of the key people across the Babcock's group and you'd be reporting on all the things you were trying to do. And it was, just crisis, pure crisis.
Yeah.
And then...
What do you think caused it all? Like
poor governance.
Poor governance.
Poor governance, totally.
Explain that.
There weren't the right controls, balances and controls. Why would, if you think about it, would you have leveraged your balance sheet to the point they had on the assumption that debt would be that cost forever?
Yeah.
So then if suddenly you've got a shift in that.
And there was no foresight that there was a recession coming or?
Look, I think people were on the Kool-Aid and just felt the model that had been working till then could keep working. So they took risks. Poor governance led to risk taking.
Yep. And,
lack of controls that you would normally expect to counter that. And the thing is, this is mums and dads, shareholders' money that was at risk here. Yeah. So, and eventually a lot of people lost, GFC caused a lot of people to lose a lot of money, don't get me wrong, but what happened, at Babcock's, was always there was always going to be a deterioration, but perhaps it wouldn't have been as bad as an outcome as it was. So,
what was I'm interested in the mindset of the CEO or the leadership, like the executive team at the time. What was being said around that table? I think where the question comes from is leadership in a crisis situation. Right?
I could write a few chapters on that.
I
think it was survival, right? It was you go into survival mode, and I think that clouded their thinking around making some decisions sooner than they could have. It was also a really complicated set of arrangements, so things that couldn't be unwound easily. So you got to contextualize this. So I think leadership at the time were fighting fires and just constantly every day were fighting fires. Now that went on for a few months, but then what happened was effectively the BBP just separated. Well, in a way, it was doing its own thing away from the Babcock and Brown, the mothership as we called it, because that was just in free fall. Yeah. And you had these assets in BBP, which were power stations, which were still generating cash. And if we could get a restructure, if we could actually get a buyer, that business did have a future, right? So you had to take a longer term view, and that's ultimately what happened, right? Because it was sold to to a group of people, and it was rebranded as Linter, and that's the Linter that we know today.
Yeah, great.
So, And those guys have done a tremendous job in terms of sorting out a lot of the legacy issues. So,
did you manage a team during the time?
yeah, I did. But it was an unusual role because I moved from sort of like a JV role to just being this executive who did commercial stuff, right?
Okay.
So sorted fight.
Yeah.
Did the sales, worked
Yeah.
with the banks, ran a process of, could we run for interested buyers? So I was constantly working with the banks on that.
So was it very much like a situational leadership type scenario where you were sort of, this is just what needs to get done, go do?
Yep.
Yeah.
I learned more in that period, in that sort of 18 months to 2 years than most people would in a decade.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Because just the unique set of circumstances you were dealing with.
What was one of your key learnings? What do you remember, look back on and go, that's actually held me in good stead today?
The capacity of what I could absorb and deliver.
Okay.
It was immense.
Yeah.
And I just didn't think I could do that. And I look back at it now and I go, my God, what I managed to get through, the complexity of the issues, rallying people around with that focal point and bringing in the support, the partners and support, other advisors, and just getting that real extreme focus on an outcome. That was what I learned.
Does it make you, when we ask about if it holds you in good stead today, does it make you think that nothing's actually that hard now? Because you've been through what is like so complex, and I know some of your experiences that followed on after with CS, but we'll go into that. But you can always get yourself out of a situation.
You can. It's interesting,
depending on the scenario, obviously.
Okay, Daniel, it's really interesting because I actually have some fond memories during that period because I was learning so much and I was testing myself at such a high level and I was getting through it and I was actually accomplishing stuff. Yeah. So you actually had a sense of achievement.
Yeah, okay.
Even though the world's falling apart. And I had a very sort of fatalistic perspective, I guess, which is, well, it'll be what it'll be. I'll do what I can. I'll do as best I can. And then, if it all falls in a heap, I'll do something else. And
this is your traveling the world.
Yeah, I know.
Wherever I go in the world, I'll be fine.
And that's exactly right. And what's interesting is I had that confidence at the time. And I was like, okay, I'll make the most of it and see where it gets me. I guess I also knew I had a few sort of avenues to get out if I needed to. So that was kind of what was in the back of my mind.
You're an educated and experienced person. You'll be fine. As long as you do the right thing, you'll be fine. Yeah. So where to from here?
Well, ironically, when I sold that power station to Origin in a few weeks, I developed some pretty good relationships, and I knew the Origin guys quite well. Yeah. And they reached out and said, "Oh, would you be interested in coming across?" And so I did. I said that'd be fabulous. Yeah. So at the end of 2009, and joined the. They had bought Origin had gone through this rapid growth from what it was into this very large vertically integrated energy company.
Because they bought everything for cheap.
Well, they'd also developed. You've got to put it in perspective.
No, I'm joking.
I know they had. When they were spun out of Boral, they were hardly a thing. There were a few gas networks, pipelines and what have you, which they sold, the LPG business, not much else. And then they just, over the period in the 2000s, they bought different retail businesses in Victoria with privatisation and the second sales that went through on there. They started to build a generation portfolio.
Smart game, good leadership.
Yeah, good leadership. Grant King, real visionary, absolutely. They took an amazing upstream gas position, like still living the benefits today. Like he saw the future of CSG, coal seam gas, saw it, got some tremendous reserves. So they had tremendous assets. So they had bought this business. Well, if you think about it, from when it was spun out to sort of a decade or so later, when we're talking, it was a very large business that had grown very quickly, and the generation portfolio was huge at this point, and the largest generator in the country. But it was a whole lot of separate little businesses, separate assets, and needed to be brought together as a portfolio. So that was the opportunity to bring that generation group as a portfolio. And that was your role? So that's to work in that group.
Grow that.
So that was great.
Seated at the executive table?
No, I was below the executive table at that point. But
rose up in the ranks?
Yeah, no, I had a great decade at Origin and did lots of different things, and all in the energy markets business.
Yep.
So, you had the upstream business and the energy market, two distinct things. And if you look at what's going on with the Brookfield acquisition at the moment, that's what part of the whole story is.
Yeah.
And so I was on the energy markets business and did a corporate services type role. So not only did I have P&L responsibilities in some of my roles and other roles, I had those sort of service lines. And then it was a big, large organisation in the energy industry that was, had a great reputation, quality of the people, like some really smart people. And that's what kept the place going, actually, because they'd grown so quickly, they were underdone on systems and processes.
Yeah.
Like most organisations.
Well, this is where I think last time we spoke, you said to me you were a big part of building a safety culture within Origin.
Yeah, I was. One of my roles, I had the accountability for safety in the energy markets business. And we looked at the performance, and I remember this period, there was this concern around the overall safety performance of the organisation. Grant and the other executives were saying we need to do something differently.
What year was this?
I think it was 2012.
Okay, so this was when the safety thing was starting really.
Yeah.
Big.
And
before that, it wasn't much.
Well, I think there was a lack of consistency.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I was involved with the other safety execs across the business to sort of get in place this life-saving rules, and then we started to look at cultural programs like a lot of organisations do. We built a frontline leadership course with some external people, which we rolled out, and that was sort of like these foundation pieces, which were sort of all designed to improve safety performance across the organisation. And that was it was a lot of fun being a part of that. And then when I took the role, one of my roles there, I took the role at LPG, which is a large business in its own right. It's national and international, so all through Australia, all through the Pacific. Lots of trucks, lots of moving parts, lots of hazards, because effectively, you got this hazardous substance that you're driving around with every day, going to customers every day. So a lot of things can go wrong. And it had a really bad, when I took the job in 2014, it had an atrocious culture and safety performance, financial performance, you name it.
Yeah,
it was it was the bottom of the bottom.
Yeah,
and
is that just born out of the quick growth, or was
no?
It's leadership.
It's an old legacy part of the business.
Okay.
It's one of the old parts of the business. It was just a combination of hadn't been really given a lot of love and care and attention, and
so I think it seems like you're Mr. Fix-It.
Well, I did have a bit of that reputation in terms of throw me at. Because I was involved in the New South Wales acquisition as well when I first got there, which was the Araring Power Station and the retail businesses. So I was thrown into that. Sort out the Uranquinty Power Station, which I'd sold them, which was not performing as it should. Sort that out. So I was just and I ended up running the LPG business, and its engagement score was 26 out of 100.
Yeah, well,
losing 10% every sales every year in terms of customers. Safety, the TRIFR was over 22. Like, it was just horrendous. Every metric was just atrocious. And on the engagement score, Tasmania was 8.
Oh wow!
It was a bit of the Tasmanian thing in there as well.
So what do you do in that situation?
You got to confront what's in front of you, right?
Yeah.
And I just walked in, and that was what what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And so we just.
So can I? With the business that I run, we do a lot of work in the culture space. So I'm interested in understanding, as you walk in, you go, shit, I'm seeing scores of 8 here and 26 overall. What's the mindset? At what point do you what is your plan? There you go. We've got to change culture, because culture is such a big thing. It is, and it's often the number one question we get asked is where do we start?
Well, there's a couple of things. Number one, there was already some stuff starting in the safety side of things.
Okay,
a couple of really talented people have been brought into the business, and they were like real smart, very capable people. And sort of leverage them in terms of, right, let's build a program out on how we're going to look at visible leadership, how we show front up, the behaviours we're going to accept, and we're going to just drive that through the organisation around accountability. And so that was already starting to roll through, right? Because you understand, prior to me taking the LPG role, I had the safety response. So I knew about it. So I was coming in from that angle. Now I've got the P&L angle. And I had actually kept up doing both safety and LPG. And so driving a cultural change program around safety, using your statistics to drive behaviour, safety conversations, so coaching conversations. Anyways, we started to see the wheel turn there. And that number was drifting down from 22 and it's coming down. Because you got to understand, this will sum it up. When I had the safety responsibility and I went and saw the GM who used to run LPG, and I was talking about the changes we needed to make, and he just looked at me and said, "It's LPG, we hurt people." So why do you think it had the results it did?
Jesus.
That's true. And then we had an argument in the office, and he told me to F off and get out of the office.
Yeah, wow.
I still remember that. Anyway, so that was the legacy. So that was part of it. And then the other thing, in terms of, like, as a new leader, you got the ability to say, right, this all happened, right, but I'm going to own it. Even though I wasn't here, I'm going to own it. And we're going to get everything on the table. We're going to just absolutely confront it all. And I remember we went down to
look in the mirror.
Look in the mirror type stuff. Yeah. And so we went down to Tasmania as a leadership team and got a cross-section of all the different people, drivers, cylinder fillers, salespeople, admin, whatever. Yep. Threw them in a room and just let them go. Yeah. Just vent the spleen. And I'm telling you, it was just, for them, it was getting it off their chest. And they just went ballistic. And we then kept fronting up every quarter. So there's the visible leadership. There was a few little changes we needed to make based on the feedback we were getting that have really made a difference. And they weren't big issues.
Yeah.
What
were some of the...
Well, just put an extra salesperson on to win some customers back.
Yeah.
Put an extra truck on because they were struggling to manage the service levels they did because they didn't have enough trucks to deliver every day. Yeah. Creative centre of excellence in Tasmania servicing the rest of the business. So this is about an identity and recognising Tasmania's significance. Yep. So that's about culture, respect.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so all these little things. Now,
so they're starting to feel heard at this point.
They heard. One, you've sat down and listened.
Acknowledged.
You keep fronting up. You keep giving feedback. You make small little decisions and you follow through on it. So they see you following through.
So you do what you say you're going to do.
Do what you say you're going to do. Tasmania, by the time I left that business, had an engagement score of 82.
Yeah, wow.
And that was...
What's that, 76% turnaround?
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. So it just shifted enormously. So that was my, it was a really... the building blocks were really around the safe culture, which is around accountability.
What was the conversations like at the how long did you keep fronting up for? And when it was 82%,
I still fronting. I mean, the whole thing about the whole leadership team, it wasn't just me. The whole leadership team, I sort of said, we've got to drive this a culture of accountability, visible leadership. So I want you guys, not just me. You got to, because there were 70 odd sites in Australia, and then you had another 30 or 40 odd in the Pacific. I said, I want people visiting all of those sites every year. So you rotate through, in terms of fronting up, going to a toolbox in the morning, going for a ride along in a truck, listening to what a driver's got to say, which is about what's giving him grief. So you just constantly... Yeah. And that was the shift, because up until then, the feedback had been management didn't really care. They just sat there and you had people would raise ideas and it wouldn't get through. And I call it wouldn't get through the layer of clay. Yeah. Yeah. And that layer of clay that sits in a lot of organisations. So how do you punch...
Clay's a nice word, isn't it?
Exactly. How do you punch a hole through that layer? And there was a lot of things we did to punch a hole through that layer to get people's ideas so people could be heard. Because the best ideas, typically on turning an organisation around, exist in the organisation by the people who know, because they do it every day.
100%.
So how do you unlock that? How do you listen? How do you then create a feedback loop so you show I am listening and this is what we're doing about it? Because not every idea you're going to run with, but you need to explain why. Yeah. Give the why, the context. So we just created that, and it was the whole team just driving that.
Beautiful.
And it just shifted.
This is a great case study. What did the ROI look like? Did you see a productivity increase, or what was the?
Well, it was losing money.
Yeah. So you were saying 10% every year.
Yeah, it was losing volumes and customers about 10% a year. And it grew the top line. So we started to grow back our market share.
Yeah.
But EBITDA wise, it was sort of, moved from negative to sort of 70 million in a few years.
From a percentage point of view, so you go on a minus 10% a year.
Yeah.
Where does that go from a? Because I'm absolutely obsessed with the numbers behind this. Because I often believe that culture is one of those things that is really hard to quantify and put some ROIs.
I honestly have forgotten the numbers.
Okay.
To tell you the truth,
spewing because I think I'd clip this and I'd send it to a lot of people. This is what culture can do for you in your business. It can turn it around, and it will do this for you. It's not that it can; it will if you're all in.
Yeah, it was one of the things about it was it was a high volume, high cash, so it spun a lot of cash.
Yeah.
But the margins in the business were always pretty thin.
Yeah.
So that was, it was never going to be a multiple. And that's the thing in the origin context when you're making a gazillion over here in the upstream business, right?
Yeah.
And over here you've got all these moving parts, lots of risk, but you're spending a lot of cash. But you're actually, when you look at the returns, they're not like massive, 7-8%.
Yeah. Okay.
So you got to contextualize it.
Yeah.
But the cash actually helped with a lot of other metrics for the origin balance sheet because that was the
so that's why they kept it.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah, for me, it's just I'm passionate. Also, when I said people don't understand what culture can do, it's positive culture. It's a culture. It's an optimized culture, something that you work on consistently. It's like when you go to the gym and you go, I want to go and get a good body. I want to get a 6-pack or whatever it is. You go to the gym and you got to concentrate on fit. Like it's all the different things that go into it, different types of training, different types of muscle groups, all the above. But once you get there, you don't just stop. You don't go, I've hit the culture that we want. I've got the body that I need. It is now about how do we maintain, how do we continue and potentially improve, right? And I think that's the one thing is we get asked a lot of questions. We want to improve the culture of this business, this organisation, and it's that. But you got 12 months to do it. It's like,
that's right.
Hang on, it does not work like that. So no, kudos to you in that time. Right. So we're moving on from origin. You've learned a lot. You've learned how to lead. You've turned some businesses around, and you get tapped on the shoulder to
go to CS. And I was at that point, and I reached where I could go in the origin context, and was like, where to next?
Yeah.
And I had a few opportunities. None of at the same time. It's interesting how that always happens. And I looked at and all CEO roles, and I'm like, okay, I'm kind of a CEO. In the origin, it's a big business. Yeah. Why don't I go to the next? Because I never sort of sat down and said I want to be a CEO. I'd never actually had that conversation with myself. It was all about okay, what's the next opportunity? Take advantage of that. Here we go. What am I? Gonna, do I like it? What am I going to?
Was there never a point where you went, I could be?
That's when at Origin, when it was sort of like, okay, I'm at this point now where I could actually do this.
Yeah. So did you ever work on yourself through that time? Did you I
did.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I got approached about a CEO role early in my career at Origin, and it would have been a great role. But I wasn't. When I look at it now, I wasn't ready.
Yeah. Okay.
And I looked at my leader, and one of the people that I was talking about was really talented who in the HSE space. So she worked for me.
Yeah.
Incredible coach.
Yeah.
And she had the ability to coach me. She reported to me, but coached upwards.
Yeah, wow.
And she made me a much better leader in terms of understanding the power of vulnerability and humility and how to coach and mentor.
Yes.
So she shaped a lot of that. And I looked at my leadership style too, because I'd come out of this Babcock's Origin sort of like deal.
Yeah.
Move to the next transaction, fast pace. And I learned some bad behaviours around, just always just clicking your fingers on the phone, not being present, thinking about the next thing. A pace setter.
Yep.
To use that if you do the Hay 180.
Yes.
And I just had one leadership style, which was pace setting. Now, that's not great for a team.
No.
Short bursts, absolutely.
Yeah.
So when I looked at...
They can't keep up.
Correct. And it just burns people out. But I defined myself through that. And then I... realised through this Deirdre's the name, And she actually helped me understand that I needed to broaden my leadership style. Plus, I had the Hey 180, and I could have rationalized the Hey 180 results and said, "Oh, but I needed to be like that. I needed to behave like that." No, actually, I needed to confront it and go, "That's not okay."
What's a point in time?
It's a point in time, and so I really worked at building, affiliative, visionary, all the other. So by the end of that, I'd gone from one dominant, nothing else, to 4 dominant and secondary leadership styles. Great. So I'd actually broadened my leadership behavior.
Beautiful.
Yep. And
can we just touch on that for a sec, right? So a lot of people aren't really orientated towards developing their skills. They're chasing the things that they want to hang around with friends. They want to go out have a good time. What did it look like for you when you were developing those skills? What were you doing in that time?
I was consciously changing what I was doing, what I was saying, how I was behaving. So when I would have a conversation with someone, I absolutely had re-looked at how I would have that conversation.
Understanding their perspective,
focusing on stuff which mattered to them, not me. Talking to them about the future, not just the present. Just lots of and it's just about how you build that out. So you build a relationship, which is far broader than what it was, and that was, and I can really remember that, and that doesn't happen overnight. Until over a few years, my leadership team saw the difference and benefited from that. And one of the great things is when you actually start to get better at it, and then you see them develop. And one of the people who reported to me has ended up now. She was my CFO. She's ended up now running the LPG business. Right, wow. It's a great, and that was part of that process.
Makes you feel good. Yeah,
totally. I mean, I was coaching and mentoring her.
Yeah,
and she's grown into this operational leader running this huge business, and it was fabulous. So that's what I was very conscious decisions about what I did.
Self-awareness is a big piece in that, though.
It is. You've got to be prepared, though. Self-aware, one thing.
Yeah.
Being prepared to do something about it is another thing. Yeah. So I had the self-awareness, and I was having a mirror held to my face by Deirdre. Yeah. Saying, "Hey, dude, the way you're behaving, like you're a schmuck at times, right?" So
I can imagine.
It was good. And so she took me on, and
good on Deirdre.
Yeah.
So well, I'm a firm believer that change occurs when the pain of staying the same is far greater than the pain of transformation, right? So what pain were you going through where you said, "Shit, I need to change here. I need to do something about my leadership style"?
I realised the pain I was causing others.
Yeah, okay.
Because being this extreme pace setter and the impact it was having on others, I was like, hang on, that's not okay. Yeah, you actually need to change yourself because you're having a negative impact on people. And when I realised that, stopped being obsessed about myself and starting to be more aware of others, it was like, well, I need to do something. And it was a very conscious choice. And as a result, I became a much more balanced, more humble, more vulnerable, open and inclusive leader than what I was. I was not any of those things.
Yeah. There's a few people that should hold the mirror up, I think. It's good. I think that the 180 stuff is amazing, I think, from understanding your thoughts on how you are behaving and what others think of you as well. A 360 approach, I should say, not the 180. Okay, so we're moving into a world of CS Energy where you were CEO for 5 years, and it feels like everywhere you go, there's chaos. Is that so? Look out, SA Power Network. No, I'm joking. So what now? What happened in your time here at?
Thanks, Daniel. Christ, there was not chaos at Origin.
No, sorry, you're right. It wasn't at Origin.
There was CS, government-owned generator in Queensland, another one CEO, going through a big transformation, moving from coal into renewables in a retail position. And, there was a lot of legacy stuff there. And, I probably don't want to, get too, I've spoken about it elsewhere, but, there was a major incident that happened in terms of, a turbine effectively exploded, and still dealing with that.
That shut down the whole state?
Big chunk of the state, one of the major process safety incidents in the history of the industry. And there's a whole lot of legacy stuff that, like any major process safety incident, if you get into the history of those. It's a Swiss cheese, lots of holes lining up, same time.
Like what's the
Texas City, Piper Alpha, Gulf of Mexico. I could keep going.
Yeah, or even the one in
Longford in Victoria.
No, the uranium one. Oh, what am I thinking? It's the Chernobyl.
Chernobyl.
Which is the Swiss. Like it was just
Swiss cheese.
Yeah, Swiss cheese.
Always they have commonality. They all have,
correct.
which is just and one of the other commonality is a lot of these things have been developing for some years. So it's not just so you've got a whole coincidence of stuff. And if you go right back to root cause, it'll go back a long time.
Yeah.
So that had a huge impact, as you can imagine. I had a cyber attack not long after it, and then
was the cyber attack because it was an opportune thing?
Look, no, it's just a reflection of. I mean, most if you think about how many Australian businesses are getting hit by cyber,
it's.
Well,
that was a question I asked Stephen Marshall, which you said. I think you said you listened to that.
I listened to his
podcast. I said, what was one of the when you first got into office? What was one of the things that just blew your mind? And his response was the amount of cyber attack. I never knew it was in the way it was.
It's just so prevalent.
Yeah.
And it was real. I mean, it happened over a Friday night, Saturday. And 6 weeks when you're black, you've got no systems. That's what it was.
So 6 weeks offline, nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
It was pretty.
Is that how long power was out for?
No. The operating technology was separate from the IT. So it was just affecting the IT. But, you front up on, you got everyone to say, come into the office on a Monday. That was a good way to cut through people's desire to work at home.
Because how long ago was this?
This was at the end of 21.
Oh, wow.
So in the middle of COVID.
Yeah.
Right? And everyone's like, I want to work at home. I don't want to come to the office. And I'm like, well, no, what are you going to do? There's no IT. What are you going to do? You need to get into the office. And so you're running around and Post-it notes. Everything's. I'm signing manual purchase orders. How are we going to pay people? It was a real eye opener in terms of what actually happens. So that was in the same year.
So what does that conversation at the executive table look like?
Oh well, when you're in the middle of a crisis, because you've got a full time. You've each got your roles. So you are performing your roles to define the crisis. What do you need to solve it? Who's handling the stakeholders, people, that sort of stuff. So you're all performing your roles. And one of the things about us as a team, because we've been through a lot, we're very good at managing a crisis. And so everyone just switched into, boom, off you go. And the guys did an incredible job and a really, really impressive job. And we had really good advisors to help deal with it. And it was ransomware. Out of Russia, someone opened an email at one of our sites that they shouldn't have. Phishing, opened a portal into our systems, and then our alarms through our service providers weren't being monitored and acted on. There's a whole lot of
We've had Mohan Kuru. Do you know Mohan? Have you met him yet?
No.
He's been touted as one of Australia's top 50 cybersecurity experts. Oh, sorry, he's the only Australian in the top 50 global cybersecurity experts. And we've had him on the show. And he goes, you can have all the best systems and software and everything in the world, but it's the
human error.
It's the human error. And so, we talk about culture of safety at Origin. It's the new thing is the culture of cybersecurity.
Correct. Right? And we have cyber shares. So you have safety shares, you have cyber shares. You got to, because that's what you've got to do. You've got to bed it into your culture. Everyone will be attacked. Everyone at some point will have an experience.
Does that scare you now, being CEO of SA Power? Not scare you. I think you can obviously put things in to mitigate. But Power, like SA Power, we rely on you guys. Like we're standing in a room right now. We're sitting in a room right now, and everything is comes through you guys.
So I benefited from the experience I've been through about what to look for. And what you should see in terms of a mature cyber set of control systems. And so what are people monitoring? So you look at that. Where's your capability? What systems have you got? Where are you on a maturity ranking? And you look for so you can get an idea pretty quickly as to where the gaps are going to be. Now, I'd have to say what I've seen at SAPN is pretty impressive in terms of its maturity. Always can do better. You never get there.
No.
It's like safety. You never get there.
It's like the gym scenario, right? We're always trying to improve.
Always trying to improve. So, I've been quietly surprised and pleased by what I've seen since I've been at SAPN in terms of that maturity. But the lived experience is something that I think the organisation can benefit from, because it's like, here's what to prepare for. Here's what it looks like. And I've spoken to quite a few boards around Australia about the experience, because you have a view of the world and you do these cyber drills and tests and penetration
you
tests.
always think it's not going to happen to me.
But also you make assumptions about time frames and what happened.
Yeah.
And I say, let me tell you the reality of what actually it looks like. And when you get some chilling reminders about the brutal facts of how do you pay your people? Have you actually worked that out beforehand? Yeah. Little simple. Okay, that's a good point.
So when you're saying IT goes down, how do we actually pay?
How do you pay people?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. Have you thought about it? Right.
Pull out some cash and
well,
I'm joking.
How do you pay suppliers? How do you all these sort of So what contingencies have you built into your processes so when it does go wrong, you can actually still function? And that's kind of part of it as well. And people think the speed of which it happens, like they're in there monitoring for 6 weeks or 12 weeks, and then they finally come in. The speed at which this happened was all done within 24 hours. Yeah, it was all in, out.
Yeah. And it's not something you can just switch off and on again and it's all gone away. It takes time to fix it. But you're right, the paying of people, because the ongoing effect, you can't just...
No. And I think, the other thing is you got to remember IT is separate from OT, like I said.
Yeah.
So you got to make sure you've got really strong firewalls and separation gaps between them.
Outside of paying other people, what were some of the other things?
Paying suppliers. Yeah. How do you bid and dispatch generation units into a market every 5 minutes?
Yeah, wow.
All right. How do you organise if you've got maintenance on projects and you need data on that? So everything.
Does it raise the potential of safety concerns?
It does, because and as a result, you take a very conservative approach. It's a good question. You take a very conservative approach on what you might assume because you had data sitting there in SAP, or you don't have that visibility, so you can't assume that that's in place, that isolation's occurred. So your permit systems have got to change because your electronic permits have gone, so your manual permits, how you isolate changes. So everything slows down. Because you've got to do it all manually, you've got to double check, you've got to do the manual verification. So it just slows everything down. But you can get around it, but it takes... So knowing that, what does that look like is really important.
Do you with AI going where it is, right? Like there's going to be a matter of time before someone's come up with some AI that can just pretty much hack into everything. Like, is that...
Look, I don't know. I mean, that's the AI, the fear. I mean, I haven't really thought about it from that perspective.
Sorry, I think a lot about AI. I am actually obsessed with it, but I just think it feels like the people who are always in front are the people who are trying to get in, right?
That's right.
So we all, from us, I think, notoriously or historically. Safety concerns and cybersecurity has always been reactive as opposed to proactive, but you just don't know what someone's going to come up with and create. So how do you?
I think it's like I said, you never get there. So you just the investment that companies have got to make in cyber is just exponentially increasing year on year. So
how do you manage that change as a business?
Externals are really key to stay in front. Constant assurance and testing and vigilance, which goes to your dashboarding. So what are you looking at? I think the external thing I'm going to repeat, like you should have is a really good point. If you've got a cyber governance group which is monitoring this across the organisation, because a lot of people go, it's an IT problem. No, it's an organisational problem. 100%. So therefore, you've got a shared responsibility of what you're looking at. And if you, whatever that governance looks like in your organisation, like we had we called it the Cyber Steering Committee, right? So we had an external, out of the hack, we had an external to sit on that, to say, bring in an external perspective, to challenge, constantly challenge. I think that's like a fresh set of eyes. 100%. You need that. It's like safety. You just need that.
It's complacency, right?
Correct. And
this comes back to the fact that it is very much about a safety culture, right? It is about the human
Yeah.
is most likely going to make the mistake that causes the breach.
Yeah. So that's always the human factor is always the biggest risk, without doubt. Most cyber attacks, 90-something% of cyber attacks are human error related.
That podcast I did with Mohan was eye-opening from the sense that it's not only the clicking of the email of the Russian spyware, so to speak, or any other country's spyware. It's what scared me. It was the photo that someone put up when they were a 21-year-old. That someone now uses against them and goes, "I'll use this against you unless you pay me $30,000 or you get me into a folder at such and such company."
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the extortion and blackmail.
Yeah.
And look, my role, they target you, right? So majorly.
Yeah.
So what it means at a personal level, you've got to make some fundamental changes about what you do with how you store your personal information and the controls you have around your accounts.
Yeah.
It becomes very slow and cumbersome to make changes, but that's kind of the consequence. You just got no choice.
So what is that? Is that some advice you're giving to anyone who's looking at getting into a leadership role? Is like,
So just really, what have you got out there on social media, for example? What's accessible that is online that you don't want? From when you were 21, say, for example. We all did, like we were talking earlier, right? We all did stupid things at that age.
Yeah.
But then in terms of, they target you as a CEO, they target you, your bank accounts, your personal information, your super, your tax, whatever. They go for you. So you've got to put layers of controls around that. So two-factor, multi-factor authentication. And that's one of the things I did straight away out of this. I just, rang the ATO, told them what had happened, did the same with my super, my bank. So I've got this. It's so hard for me to do anything now.
Yeah.
But that's the consequence.
I'm not going to stereotype, but I'm going to stereotype. A lot of CEOs are older generation who aren't the most technology savvy. Yeah, is that the reason why you think they're getting targeted? Or is it
possibly? No, it's more about their position.
Yeah,
right. They're most at risk. They've got the most to lose.
They've got password is their password,
but they've also got the most. They've also got the most to lose, and they're often a key to get into an organisation. Right. So when you get phishing in emails, and it's like we picked this. I've sent you an email to say, my bank account's changed, or can you change these payment terms? And it's come from me or whatever. And it's like, just pick up the phone. Don't ever, things like that. That's what
I mean. Gabriella, how many emails have you received from inverted commas me?
Yeah,
I think the team. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So I've learned a lot.
Buying vouchers and stuff. And I need you to go and buy 10 vouchers. Have you got that one yet? I've had that one a few times. Anyway, so where were we? We were at CS Energy. You've gone through some cyber attacks. Yeah. You've given us some great information.
Yeah.
There was a whole political piece around this thing that we just won't dive into. No. The part that I'm interested in is what happens next. How do you transition out? What changes do you make as an organisation to ensure that doesn't happen again?
Oh, we had some incredible advisors, like the best in Australia, fortunately, and they were involved in supporting Optus recover from their stuff.
Okay.
And we just took everything that they gave us and implemented everything that they, and if I look at the best thing that came out of it was like we went from a pretty immature, unsophisticated approach to, this is independently assessed by externals, would be right at the top in the energy industry, because of that experience. The pendulum swings. So the controls, the knowledge, the training, the governance, everything just went from there to there.
Yeah. What does your conversation with your wife and your kids look like when you're going through these crises?
It's a really good question. I've learned a lot about this. I deliberately don't talk about work at home, and it's when my dad was alive. He was a stress merchant. He had a heart attack, and He used to shut the good door in the kitchen and just unwind about ridiculous things for like half an hour before he'd see us kids. And I said, no, I'm not going to behave like that. So I deliberately never brought work into the home. Problem with that is when things do go really wrong,
and you're
often you actually don't have a language and a understanding of how to communicate about this stuff, which is not good. That said, also there's, regardless of that, if you did, there's conversations you need to have that aren't with your family, that aren't with people at work, but they need to be away from it, and you need to have someone to support you in that regard. So I actually had someone that I could have those deep, questions, fears, anxieties, put them on the table. Yeah. And that was really helpful.
Yeah, I can imagine. Because in amongst all this, you're dealing with a health problem.
Yeah.
Just to throw it out there. Just to throw extra fuel on the fire.
Yeah, no. So I'm a prostate cancer survivor. So 2019 diagnosed with aggressive prostate cancer, and got through it. Touch wood so far. Your odds improve each year. That's the way you look at it.
Well, you caught it early, didn't you?
Yeah, I got it early, and that's courtesy of being vigilant around what we were talking about before. Yeah. Obsessed about my health. Thought I was going to die of a heart attack. Always getting myself checked out.
So in a way, your old man's.
And I've said this publicly, my dad's death saved my life. It did. I got it early, saw an incremental change in my PSA by less than 10%, or just over 10%, and that led to a diagnosis. And got onto it before it got out of the prostate, so not into the lymph node. So I didn't need chemo or radiotherapy or anything, but still a pretty radical operation when you get your prostate taken out and all of the complications that can come with that. And I took the same approach that I take to managing a personal crisis to any other crisis. In this, you break down into steps. Don't get overawed by, oh my God, I've got cancer, to, okay, I've got prostate cancer. What do I need to do about it? Oh, when am I having the operation? Right. Can I be first up in the morning? Done. You move. When am I going to the physio? Done. Right. I'm going to make sure I do this first walk for this length by this date. Each little step, you build confidence.
How do you control your emotions in this?
You've got to talk.
Yeah, I'm hearing you speak, and I'm just I'm panicking in my own head right now. You're dealing with bloody issues at work, and not to mention managing your own health issues, which might give you the thought process: does it even matter what's going on elsewhere? This is the only thing that I actually really need to care about.
Well, I felt I had things in control by what I'd done.
Because you had it early.
Got it early, and I just took a really positive attitude.
Great.
I talked about it excessively. Yeah. Goes to your question. Yeah. And that was some advice a friend of mine gave me who had diagnosed in his 40s. So I just talked, and therefore I took a positive view on when I was in hospital about I'm going to do something about this. In my position, I can influence, I can reach people with a positive message.
Kudos.
So, not everyone wants to do that. It helped because there was nothing left. You talked it all out, you were confronting it, you were just being open about it, and you were seeing the benefit that you were helping other men. So you got the good feeling that comes with that when you knew you were impacting others' lives. That's how I dealt with it. And that's my attitude now. So I'm a real, anyone who's looked me up, I've done a podcast around this issue, and now I'm down in South Australia. I've connected with Cancer South Australia and also the university down here. They're doing some tremendous research into prostate cancer research. So I'm going to, link in with those guys and help raise money and promote men's health down here and awareness around prostate cancer.
So I every time I speak about, I listen to someone speak about this, I should say, or have a conversation around cancer and prostate cancer, the first thing that comes to my body and the feeling that goes through my body is this butterflies of nervousness. Like, shit, I'm not doing enough here. What do I need to do?
All right. There's a really clear message, very, very clear message. You need to start getting yourself checked. If you've got a family history, you need to start getting yourself checked as soon as you're 30. It's simply, if a doctor says to you...
What's a check? What do I go into the doctor
and ask? It's a blood test.
Just a blood test?
PSA. PSA. So do you go and get yourself?
I don't do anything.
You don't do
it's
anything?
ridiculous. I'm stupid. Yeah.
You're stupid.
I'm one of those.
Right.
Majority though. I think I fall into the majority.
You look at women, right? Women get pap smears every year.
Yeah.
They go and get scans, breast scans.
Yeah, but we know that women are far more smart.
Correct. They are far smarter. So my message to men is you need to operate the same way, right? And you need to go, like, if you're getting your blood done for cholesterol and whatever else, it's ticking a box for a PSA.
Yeah.
So
can I? So I'm very inexperienced in this, and I am somewhat naive. Going to book up and say, "Can I have a blood test to check PSA?"
Yep.
That's the words that come out of my mouth.
Yep.
Okay.
And
anything else I need to say?
But can I give you some advice?
You give me all the advice.
Right.
I need it.
You should be doing a regular physical with your doctor. Where they don't just do that. They're looking at cholesterol, blood pressure, a whole lot of stuff, liver functioning, so forth, right? And every year go and get that done, because it's the incremental increase in your PSA, which is the marker as to whether you've got an issue or not.
Yeah.
Now, the big thing that I get frustrated about doctors is they go, oh, no, you don't need to start getting yourself tested until you're 50 or you're 60. That's a load of crap.
I'm willing to pay for it. Just let me do it now.
Do it now. Yeah. And if your doctor refuses, go and get another doctor, because then the other thing the medical profession's not helping with is they say, oh, the PSA doesn't tell you if it's got cancer. No, it's not designed to. What the PSA tells you, it's a marker. What it is, it's indicating there's something going on. Your PSA numbers are elevated, so you then do a whole lot of other testing on other things to diagnose what your issue is. So you then have a choice to make. But if you choose not to do anything about your PSA and you have cancer, and it gets out, you don't have a choice. You've effectively just played Russian roulette with your own life by ignoring this advice. So it's never too young to start this. Sooner the better. The most aggressive cancers typically happen in the 40s, 30s and 40s. Will McDonald here in Adelaide. Yeah. He's a great example.
He is.
42 when he was diagnosed.
Yeah.
Look at him now.
Will's the Channel
9, I think it is. Yeah.
I've only just presented.
Yeah, I've just been introduced.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, so he's
stories
42. Right, so if anyone says, "Oh, wait till you're 50," wrong. Sooner the better. And the PSA, if someone says it doesn't tell you, wrong. It's a marker and it helps diagnosis.
So, 6 months, 12 months. How often do you
annually, unless you've got a family history.
Okay. Of prostate cancer and stuff like that. Yeah. I should. I got to get. So my father-in-law is a survivor as well, and so I should tell my my brother-in-law to get onto this. He's in his 40s anyway. That's a personal thing.
You do. That's something you need to take away today.
I will. Here you go. I will book something in the moment we get out of this podcast. I was actually thinking about it, doing all the research on you. I've watched a lot of your podcasts, and I'm quietly sitting here, like shitting myself sometimes, going, "I'm not doing enough. I need to do more."
And I would have a conversation with a man every month who's been diagnosed.
Yeah,
and it'll be a friend or a work colleague will say, "Oh, would you have a chat to da 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 da?" I'm like, "Sure." And I just take them through what they're going to experience, what the options are. And it's the conversation I wish someone had had with me when I was diagnosed. Yeah.
It's a powerful thing. I think, just going back on the doctors, you go and get regular physicals from I don't have a lot of faith in general practitioners. When
you get a good, like I've got to find an equivalent doctor to the one I had in Brisbane. I got this wonderful guy up there who's been looking after me for 20 odd years, and he's just that classic all round, really mature, capable, and because they've got that history with you, they know what to look for as well on other things, and they understand your life.
And that's the thing. I've been actually asking this for a while. So I just want someone who can look at everything. And someone that this is their job. They go, I'm in men's health specifically, and I'm going to do your PSA test. I'm going to look at your physicals, and we're going to keep you on track. You need to lose 5 kilo. You need to drop your stress levels. You need to reduce blood pressure, whatever it might be, all the different things that everyone has. I'm yet to find someone like that in South Australia. So a call out for anyone who's listening in. Yeah. Please get in touch with us, and then I'll post it everywhere.
Thank you.
Someone does.
Because I'm looking for, I echo it, I'm looking for a really good, solid GP in Adelaide.
Brilliant. Thank you. Right, I am conscious of your time. Look, like I said to you, I think I had maybe. I'm not even gone through any of them. Where are we at? So we're in SA Power Networks now.
Yeah.
Tell us what you're doing. What's your plans? You've been there 3 months?
No, not even that.
Not even that.
Yeah, just over 2 months.
Happy with your decision?
Really happy. Look, it's a great organisation. I want to start with that. It's got a tremendous reputation. Operationally, it's one of the best network companies in Australia, and that's not just me saying it. That's independently assessed. Yeah. Like it on all sorts of metrics, financially, to delivering great results. I mean, people in South Australia, from a network perspective, are paying less in real terms than they were back in '99 when the business was privatised.
Yeah, great.
So that's a really important stat.
It's good you've learnt your stats straight away.
It's pretty important.
You're on it. You're on
well,
it.
I think the thing is people talk about and cost of energy is a big issue, right? No question. 100%. But we're not even a third of the bill. We're just under a third of the bill for the net.
Yeah, because it's all the other everything.
Well, you've got to pay. You've got to pay your high voltage, which is Electronet down here as well. You have got that charge. You've got all of these government schemes you've got to pay for
policies
and stuff, which is a big part of your bill. The retailer's got to make a margin. But the big mover that's occurred in everyone's energy bill has been the wholesale cost. And that's courtesy of what happened last year with the energy crisis, led by the war in Ukraine, gas prices, coal prices going through the roof. And then we saw that flow through Australia. So that's what's occurred. So the big increase in your bill is that, not our costs. It's a really well-run business, really capable people. People who've been at SA Power Networks are typically there a long time. I joke that if you're less than 10 years, you're a new starter. And so you've got this tremendous depth of capability and experience, passionate people.
Can that go against?
Yeah. How do you keep fresh?
Yeah, correct.
Right?
Bring in innovation.
Bring innovation. But I think what's interesting, because South Australia is at the forefront of renewable penetration, and particularly solar rooftop, they've had to innovate. They're leading the world.
Yeah.
Now, how do you keep a network stable with that amount of solar with not a large demand? And we get, look at the weather today, we'll have more rooftop solar than we need.
Yeah.
So they've had to innovate to keep the network alive.
Yeah, it's
so
great.
that's been a real attribute.
So kudos to the team.
Yeah, no, I've got tremendous respect. But, that said, like, how do you keep them fresh, right? So, I'm new CEO. I'm a different leader from the prior leader. It's not right or wrong. It's just I'm different.
Yeah. What's your 2-3 months in? What's your
my big priorities are I'm doing a culture survey, which you'll find interesting. I want a baseline.
Can I get in on that?
Yeah, baseline on where we're at. So that's really important. And that's going to drive a whole lot of activity.
How are you doing that?
Through Culture Amp.
Oh yeah, excellent.
Yeah, good product.
South Australian.
Yeah, I think
the founder. I'll throw that out there. Just so,
very agile product, which I love. So that's happening right now. Looking at the op model, because we've had a few retirements, few executives, so the opportunity to see, and I'm looking at it from the perspective of how can we improve the customer experience, and how can we plan and do our work better than what we do right now. So that's where I'm looking at. I've got that happening. We've got the regulatory reset occurring right now, which is every 5 years you've got to go through with the regulator what you plan to spend on the network to achieve a certain level of performance. So that's happening right now. So it's a big priority. We've got an EA negotiation coming up at the end of the year, and the last one was a bit torturous, so I'm very aware of that and managing that with the least impact that we can. I'm very much around getting out to the regions. So again, this business is across the whole of the state. Yeah, big regional employer, big regional impact on the economy. So I'm getting out and meeting with our people and all, I've been to the Eyre Peninsula, Florio, getting out to...
Yeah, I saw you change your LinkedIn profile to a nice little high vis.
But I love that. That's a big... It goes back to what I was talking about at Origin. I love getting out and engaging because you can't do your job unless you understand what people are experiencing. Yeah. So getting highly visible, highly engaged, and building a real culture of inclusivity and transparency. And the CEO had an office, and I'm like smashing the office down, working an open plan. Yeah, there's all these little visible signs around that.
Is there the fear of the 100-day restructure?
No, well, I'm doing the op model review. That's already So I've got my 100-day plan, absolutely, which I'm focusing in on, which is the stuff I'm talking about. But that's where I'm at so far. There's a lot happening because that's me, but then you've also got a lot happening in the business which has got to be dealt with in terms of market changes. Industry's going through rapid transformation at the moment.
Digital transformation.
Digital. The whole energy transformation that's happening in Australia now, seems hundreds of billions of dollars going to be spent across the country on network and renewables, and that has a huge impact on the system. So, yeah, it's a great time to be a part of a business right now. There's certainly no short of challenges.
Very exciting. Very exciting. You're gonna have a lot of SA Power Network people listening in. What's your main message to them right now?
Oh, just how welcoming they've been to me.
Yeah.
I mean, they genuinely have. Like people are going. Often they'll say, "How you going? You enjoying it? How's Adelaide going?" They give you a bit of advice on where you can go and do something, and how's the family, and just a really friendly, welcoming environment. And I love the passion. The passion. The analogy I've used a lot is it's like I've been given a Coke can, shaken up and taking the top off it. Seriously, it's just like the passion is there, and people love what they do, and they want to make a difference.
How do you maintain that? Because no doubt you'll come in, some changes will be made.
Yep.
How do you maintain that passion? How do you maintain that engagement?
I think it goes to what I said: culture of inclusivity.
Yeah.
If people feel included, well, they can speak up, express who they are, respected and empowered. That's how you maintain it. But if people feel they're not being listened to or respected, then they'll give up.
How do you manage that? Like from a leadership team, you might come in and you pick your leadership team, or you absorb a great leadership team that work with you. There's the sort of level 3, level 4 managers and leaders who haven't necessarily been taught all the skill sets in leadership. How do you manage that?
Well, you've got to invest in those people, right? They're key, right? They're the key people leaders. So, what opportunities are they being given? How are they being developed? That's fundamental. So, investing in that leadership capability is
because they haven't been set up for success, have they?
No, some have, some haven't.
Correct.
So, and that's a big priority for me. So, it's around who they are. Let's get an assessment of what each of them individually and then collectively. So making them feel like very much a part of the future, and they're going to be held to account. So not only recognising, but also the accountability piece. So that's fundamental for me.
Excellent. I love it. It's music to my ears, to be honest. Because it is. It's that it's all well and good saying, we want, we're going to lead by, but it's just we've got to actually educate and build the maturity of our leadership team at all rungs. That then can create the conditions for change and transformation.
That's exactly it.
It's beautiful. Right. I'm going to jump into, again, like I said, I haven't asked a whole bunch of questions, so I'm just going to jump into some quick ones before we go into the quick fire questions, which is looking back, looking forward sort of scenario. If you could do it all again.
Oh, how far back are we going looking back?
Would you do anything differently?
Possibly, yeah. I think I would have potentially, if I'd known what I know now, perhaps I would have done law.
Yeah, okay.
All right, if I go back to that. Career-wise, I think I perhaps, it's what I was talking about earlier around when you have kids, your perspectives change because you do feel not only what we're talking about, but you have this responsibility that I shouldered a lot of responsibility, and I think that made me a little bit more uncertain about myself and question myself. So I think when I look back, I would have backed myself and actually taken some opportunities a little bit earlier than I did. But otherwise,
what about with family? Did you spend the time that you needed to with them?
That's a good question.
That's a big one.
No. So
I think because it's one that I struggle with, right?
Oh, and when I was at Origin, I was travelling all over the place, and my wife shouldered the bulk of the parenting, and she did an incredible job. And I couldn't have done my career without that support person, and I'm very aware of that.
Yeah. So
but I really focused when I was there to be present with my kids. Absolutely.
I think it's anyone in an executive or a leadership role who's passionate about the work they do, wants to, achieve their visions. The hardest and most toughest thing is maintaining loving relationships.
It's so hard. Yeah.
Any advice?
If you don't let your routines suffer, So if your routine is you call each other every day or whatever it is, when you come home, you have 5 minutes just together or whatever, every couple will have their own, but don't let your routines suffer, because that's when your relationships start to break down, and that's when you start to become separate.
Yeah.
And you've got to regularly invest in yourselves collectively, not individually, collectively.
Correct. Yeah. No, I'm hearing every word. What excites you the most about the future?
I'm really excited about the opportunity that I've got here at SAPN. It's a great company and a lot of things in front of it, so that's very exciting. I'm really loving Adelaide. It's
one of the most livable cities in the world.
Exactly. No, I'm loving Adelaide and just really getting to understand it and the people and what you can do down here. I think I'm excited about what's going on in the energy industry more broadly. That's always going to be a gift that keeps giving. I'm excited about just seeing my kids become, move into that next phase, in their careers and families and what have you. That really excites me as well.
Brilliant. I love it. Rightio. Quick fire questions.
Okay.
What are you reading right now? We're big readers here at Synergy.
Yeah, look, I'm reading a book called Perfectionist's Guide to Losing Control.
Shit. Who's written that one?
Catherine Schaefer. Okay. And I jumped off the bookshelf to me in a bookshop in Byron.
I think that one's going to hit me in the back of the head, I think.
Yeah, because I'm a bit of a perfectionist.
Okay.
And there's a chapter in there for everyone, believe me. So it's actually really interesting. It's a great book.
Probably more the control thing is one. What's over the years, you would have read a lot and obviously developed yourself and your knowledge. What's one development book that you've probably gifted the most, or
Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
I reckon that'd be in the Hall of Fame, one of our most recommended.
It's so accessible, and there's something in there for everyone. You may not agree with everything.
Well, that's where the name comes from. Yeah. Synergy is one of the habits, right? Yeah. It's creating synergy.
And it just resonated with me at the time when it came out. And I have given it, you're right. Yeah. And I've referred it to people. But it's easy to read. It's so relevant.
Yeah. Not much bloatware in it, which is good.
No.
What's one lesson that's taking you the longest to learn?
Not to be so hard on myself.
Yeah.
Not to beat myself up all the time.
Yeah.
I still do it.
Yeah. Is that just a high expectation of yourself?
Yeah, I've got a black belt and, destroying yourself at times in terms of not being good enough. And it's just like this. It is the high expectation and always trying to do better.
Did you ever suffer from imposter syndrome? Sorry, I'm
absolutely.
Yeah.
You're not good enough. Self-doubt. And it's, it goes back to what I was talking about earlier in terms of some of those opportunities that arose. And and I look back now and I should have, but the self-doubt, the imposter syndrome, totally.
Oh, we could have done a whole podcast on that alone. If you could have coffee with one current or historical figure, who would it be?
So have you heard of Malcolm Gladwell?
Malcolm Gladwell, Tipping Point, Outlier, absolutely one of my favourite authors.
I've read all his books, devoured them, love his podcasts.
Yeah.
He's one of the great thinkers of our generation.
100%.
I would love to have coffee with him and just to have a conversation with a mind like that.
Yeah.
That just looks at things from all those perspectives. Yeah.
If you do, and I don't get an invite, I'm going to be very...
Yeah.
What is some of the best advice you've ever received?
To be grateful for what you have.
Yeah.
And not to keep looking, to be grateful for what you actually have.
Oh, that's so hard. Because it's one of those things where I think you're built with an A-type personality and you're just always looking for the next shiny thing and done that, tick, let's go.
I know, and that's the thing is actually, hey, be present, sit and actually acknowledge what you have.
What's one habit that holds you back the most?
The perfectionist.
Yeah, okay.
Just always trying, over focusing on a particular issue or a particular thing and trying to, go that extra percentage. I don't need to.
Does it have to be right all the time?
Yeah, it has to be right all the time. Has to be right all the time.
Is that at the detriment of the team around you?
Hopefully not. It's very much a personal thing. Okay. It comes back when I was young. You don't do a job unless you do it really well, right?
Yeah.
So it's this Protestant work ethic on steroids.
So we're going to call out to your executive team now and say, Hold Andrew accountable. Hold a mirror up whenever he becomes a perfectionist. Sorry, mate. I'm just going to throw you.
That's okay.
What's some of the best advice you've ever received?
Oh, you've asked that one.
Oh, have I?
Yeah.
Shit, I have too. I've gone back. Okay, we'll cut that. What's your biggest pet peeve?
Pet peeve? doing IT around the home. I just
It's the worst.
just buying a new TV just scares the Jesus out of me, because I'm just like, oh no, I've got to configure it, I've got to connect it, or whether it's putting new Wi-Fi or what. I'm like, it just does my head in.
Yeah.
So much time is wasted.
Yeah. And no one else in my family can do it.
No,
so
and it all comes back and I'm like, oh. So yeah, that would be it.
If you could, well, this is going to answer that question. What's one person you would pay to do your chures?
That's exactly that. I want a permanent IT manager in my home.
Well, you're a CEO of a company. I'm sure you've got your own IT team. I'm sure you could do a cashier on the side. Yeah. What's one word that you absolutely hate?
Unprecedented.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Just got so overdone.
It's filthy. It's not good,
man.
Is it?
The unprecedented word of the word unprecedented. God.
Right. Yeah. Note to self. Yeah. First email I send you. What's the first thing you would do if you became invisible? I love this question.
So I'd love to be able to sit in the wild and watch, and animals not knowing you were there, and just and without them running away, and then experience.
That'd be interesting.
So like if you're in the African desert, doing safari, and you're sitting there and just observing what occurs without them knowing you're there, it'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah.
Yes. What's your most useless talent that you have?
Knowing every Beatles song.
Oh, really?
I'm a Beatles.
Yeah, you are a big muso. I did read that in your profile.
I'm a huge muso, and I love the Beatles.
Yeah.
And I'm a little bit obsessed.
What's your favourite song?
Oh,
you can't answer that. It's hard.
Yeah, no, it is. Sgt. Pepper's is my favourite album, 1967. Yeah. And A Day in the Life off that album. It's in my top 5 songs of all time.
Did you play? I
wish I did. No, my parents were the musical ones, and it bypassed me. I went to my sister. So anyway.
But it's a big part of your life.
Huge part of my life. So, part of how I deal with stuff is music.
Okay.
So zone out, music, really important part of my life.
Different styles of music to help
everything.
You zone out? Just chuck it at me.
I'll do classical, electronic, punk, you name it. I'm there, right? Yeah. There's not much I don't listen to, so I'm very eclectic.
I think I'm very similar, yeah. Right, my favourite question of the whole podcast. What's your best dad joke?
I just paid $100 for a belt that doesn't fit. What a huge waste.
That's something like that. It sounds like something I would say. That's brilliant.
Oh, God.
Well done. Thank you so much for your time today, Andrew. It's been fabulous. I think we've gained a good one, South Australia, where we claim anyone that comes here. That's the way we go about it. So, thank you. And we really look forward to seeing your journey, and kudos on your career today and all the ups and downs and that you've had in your both personal and business life. And, like I said, I think I speak on behalf of most, it's a very important part of South Australia, SA Power Network.
It is.
We're really keen to see how you bring some value to the table.
Oh, look, thank you, and really appreciate being on this podcast, and I'm loving my time in Adelaide so far. And I'll be keen to keep listening to you on your future podcast.
Good. We'll see you on the bike, mate. See you out there.
See you on the bike.
Take care, all.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the podcast, all. You can check out the show notes if there was anything of interest to you, and find out more about us at SynergyIQ.com.au. I am going to ask, though, if you did like the podcast, it would absolutely mean the world to me if you could subscribe, rate, and review. And if you didn't like it, that's all right too. There's no need to do anything. Take care, guys. All the best.